Hello, Aries. Have you ever woken up with a strange unease you couldn't explain? A heartbeat that skipped, a heavy breath, as if something was knocking at the door but you weren't ready to open it. Don't brush it off. It's not random, it's the final signal, a warning from your soul, and if you listen closely, you'll realize this message has arrived today to keep you safe from a trap waiting just ahead. So let's step into the very first part, the final warning sign, Aries. This morning you opened your eyes and felt something deep inside that you couldn't quite name. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't just a passing mood. It was heavier, deeper, like a hidden drum beating inside your chest. That drumbeat isn't here to scare you. It's here to make you pause, to make you listen. In the wisdom of the Dharma, they say, when the heart stirs with an unusual signal, that is the voice of the soul, the quiet hand of the universe reaching out. And today, Aries, that signal has come for you. Let me paint you a picture. Some people walk through life looking calm on the outside, yet inside an invisible bell is always ringing. No one else can hear it, no one else can see it. But it makes the heart beat differently. It chills the hands. It weighs down the shoulders as if carrying something unseen. Most ignore it, they call it ordinary fatigue. But you, Aries, you are different. You are the flame at the front, and your soul is calling you back to your own center. I've witnessed people who turned away from that call. They chose silence, they chose to believe the false comfort around them. But eventually they paid the price. A restless unease that lingered for years. And I've also seen those who dared to stop, who sat with themselves and asked, "Why is my heart unsettled?" In that moment, they stepped out of the spiral of darkness. I share this because I believe you, Aries, stand at a similar turning point right now. The warnings of the soul don't always come in words. They show up in subtle ways. A lump in the throat, a skipped heartbeat, a restless anxiety you can't explain. Modern life teaches us to brush it aside, to say, it's just in your head. But my own experience tells me, the very moment someone says, stop imagining things, is the exact moment you need to trust yourself most. Because the soul never sends signals for nothing. Remember this, Aries. Listening to your inner voice is the first step in protecting yourself. No one can protect you better than the quiet truth inside you. I know you are strong, I know you're used to carrying heavy loads, but real strength is not only in moving forward, it's also in knowing when to stop. This truth applies not only in love, but in work, in friendships, and in every major choice you face. When that strange feeling rises, it is not your enemy, it is your guide. Take a moment now, think back. When was the last time your heart warned you about something? Was it before a meeting? Before a promise, before you walked into a familiar room? Be honest, was your intuition right? How many times have you blamed yourself for not listening to that voice? I believe many of you listening now are nodding quietly, because all of us at least once have ignored that inner call and paid with unnecessary pain. If you're hearing my voice right now, maybe you are among the few that your soul is trying to protect. By reminding you one more time, you are not alone. Many in this community have walked through the same feeling. I invite you to share in the comments when was the last time your intuition warned you loud and clear. Your story could become a lantern for someone else, proof that the inner voice is worth trusting. What matters most, Aries, is that today you no longer dismiss it. I sense a maturity in you, a readiness you may not even realize. And that is why this message is reaching you right now. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, listen to your heartbeat. It's telling you something is about to knock at your door, but not to bring peace. Tomorrow, that invitation will appear, sweet on the surface, but behind it is no healing, only a test of your loyalty to yourself. There are doors in life that open with sounds you know too well, an old voice, an unexpected message, a look that feels like turning back time. They approach, not rushing, but carefully. They stir your memories, remind you of the days when you believed that love could hold up against the whole world. They'll tell you things are different now. They'll promise the old pain was just a passing storm, and now the sun is rising. They may even cry, and those tears may look like regret, but you need to remember, not every tear falls from the heart. Some tears are forged into weapons soft on the outside, but sharp within. Picture yourself being invited into a familiar room, once filled with laughter, once home to your memories. Now it feels heavier than you recall. The air is thick, the light dim, and even if they lay out a spotless white tablecloth, place flowers in the center, Somewhere deep inside, there's still a crack, a cold space you can't ignore. You want to believe, but your soul already sees the delicate strings waiting to wrap around you. In the Dharma, it is said, any relationship that forces you to shrink yourself, to dim your light just to keep another person at peace is not love. It is bondage. It is a burden, and a burden can never feed the soul. You've stretched yourself thin to love, to hold on, to sacrifice. But true love never asks you to sacrifice your soul. True love never needs you to stay silent while your heart is screaming. And you know, society often praises compassion so much that we mistake it for self-destruction. We tell ourselves, if I give one more chance, if I forgive one more time, maybe the miracle will come. But life teaches us not every act of kindness is received with gratitude. Some open hands reach out only to tie you tighter. And if you aren't awake, you'll mistake the chains for an embrace. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself, when was the last time you accepted a beautiful invitation only to end up wounded? When was the last time you trusted sweet promises only to find darkness behind them? How many times have you blamed yourself for letting your heart be used in the name of love? If you see yourself here, know this: you are not alone. Millions have walked this same path. And this message arrives today to remind you, you don't have to repeat it. Behind those sweet promises may be nothing more than an invisible net waiting, gentle, smooth, but strong enough to hold your soul captive. And once you're caught, it's hard to see it because manipulators never use rough ropes. They use softness. They use memories. They use eyes that once made you melt. But listen, you don't have to hate them to say no. You only have to choose yourself. Because sometimes, the most compassionate act for both sides is not stepping back into the same old cycle. Not stepping in means giving both of you the real chance to grow. That's not coldness, that's awakening. I believe you already carry the wisdom to see this. And I believe that as you're listening right now, a part of you is already nodding. Not because I said it, but because you remember. You remember the times you trusted too much and lost. You remember the moment you swore to yourself, never again. This is the moment to honor that promise. If this touches you, I invite you to share in the comments, have you ever received an invitation that seemed beautiful but left you in pain? Your story might save someone else from falling into the same trap. And when you listen deeply, you'll notice one more truth. Your body always knows before your mind can react. The heart, the skin, the breath, all of them whisper, this place is not for you. And those signs will appear, even before your thoughts can put a name to them. In a quiet moment, you sit still and suddenly feel your stomach tighten. It's not hunger. It's not illness. It's a subtle contraction, like an invisible hand squeezing from the inside. Your hands turn cold. Your breath shortens. Your heartbeat skips. You look around and there's no clear reason to worry. And yet, your body is speaking. Most people call it just a feeling. But in the deeper layers of the soul, nothing is just. The body is the wind chime of the spirit. Whenever a strange wind blows, the chime rings. It doesn't create the wind. It only signals that the wind is coming. In the same way, your body trembles to warn you. The energy around you isn't safe, that something isn't right. I believe when your body reacts without reason, it's your soul ringing the bell. You may not hear it with your ears, but you'll feel it in every cell. You'll know it in your frozen hands, in the lump in your throat, in the unease you can't name. That's not ordinary anxiety. That's your soul whispering, don't go. I've met many people who later looked back and said, I knew something was off, but I brushed it aside. They felt the alarm in their body, but their mind told them it's nothing, just tiredness. And then when they crossed the threshold, they realized their intuition had been right all along. The lesson left scars not because they were tricked by others, but because they didn't trust themselves. In the Dharma, this is called the original wisdom, the wisdom you were born with. It doesn't come from books or logic. It comes from the union of body and soul. When you listen, you avoid the paths that were never meant for you. When you ignore it, you learn through pain. Ask yourself, have you ever faced a decision and your body clearly said no, but you pushed forward anyway? Have you ever sat in a conversation where your hands grew cold, your chest tightened, and yet you forced a smile? That wasn't random. That was the alarm bell. The universe gave you a sacred gift called intuition. And your body is the most direct channel of it. If society teaches you to trust logic, the soul teaches you to trust feeling. They're not enemies, but intuition always walks a step ahead of reason. It doesn't need proof, because it is the proof. And your task isn't to explain, it's to listen. Let me share a human truth. In a noisy world where we're taught to run faster, stronger, better, stopping to listen to your body is an act of courage. It is a refusal to abandon yourself. It is a way of saying, I deserve safety, I deserve respect, and I trust the wisdom within me. Remember, no bell rings without a reason. When your body shakes, when your breath quickens, when your eyes can't meet what's in front of you, it's your soul protecting you. Don't call it weakness. It's primal strength carried in your blood through generations. It's why humanity survived. It's why you are here, listening now. Try this. Think back to the last time your body spoke before something happened. Did you feel heavy inside before an argument broke out? Did you feel restless before a door closed in your life? And afterward, did you wish you had trusted that first signal? I invite you to share that story in the comments, because every story you tell not only helps you reflect, but helps someone else realize they are not alone. Don't fear those signals. They don't come to scare you. They come to save you from the traps already set. They come to keep you steady when darkness tries to pull you back. And the more you trust them, the clearer the bright path ahead becomes. Here's the miracle. When you practice listening to your body, you begin to notice the subtlety of the universe. A single shiver can save you from a mistake. A faint nudge of intuition can open an entirely new future. This is the gift no one can take away unless you abandon it yourself. And if you're asking, what happens if I don't listen? That's a question worth holding, because when we deny the warning bell, when we ignore the truth rising in the body, we step into traps we could have avoided. So, what will happen if you silence that voice and walk straight into the snare? Not every trap is built with ropes or chains. Some are spun with memories, with promises, with tears. And when you step back into them, the price doesn't come all at once. It seeps in slowly, quietly, like rain dripping through an old roof. You won't collapse in a single night, but you'll wake up morning after morning with tired eyes, with a heart heavy as stone. Sleeplessness arrives first, not the kind from late-night coffee, but the sleeplessness of the soul. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying questions that never find an answer. Was I wrong? Am I being too rigid? Did I miss my chance to make things right? The more you ask, the less you know, and sleep slips away, leaving you alone in the dark with a pain that has no name. Then comes the exhaustion, not the fatigue of work or duty, but the weariness of pretending to be someone else in your own life. Your steps grow heavy, your voice loses its strength, even joy feels like a burden you have to fake. The body cries out, but you silence it, clinging to something that should have ended long ago. And deeper still comes guilt, not because someone accuses you, but because you know you've turned your back on yourself. The betrayer is no longer out there, it's you betraying you. I've said this before and I hold it true. The greatest suffering doesn't come from others betraying us. It comes when we betray ourselves. That wound is invisible, but it eats away from the inside, dimming your faith, dimming your light. I know how far you've come to reach this place. Years of learning to stand tall, to heal, to hold the flame in your own hands. And yet, with one glance backward, you find yourself returning to the same place, stepping into the same familiar spiral of pain. Ask yourself, Aries, have you come this far only to circle back and begin again? There are yeses we speak just to please others, but each one shatters something inside. There are doors we walk through just to avoid saying no, but the cost is years of losing ourselves. The world teaches us that saying yes is kindness, but the truth is, sometimes only the courage to say no is true loyalty to the soul. Saying no doesn't mean rejecting love. Saying no means protecting the love that belongs to yourself. It means guarding the flame from being snuffed out. Tell me, what is the hardest thing for you to say no to in life? Is it the fear of being disliked, the fear of losing someone, or the fear of being called cold? I invite you to share in the comments, because when you name that fear, you'll see it isn't as big as you thought, and maybe your story will give someone else the courage to find their own no. Don't forget, you are not powerless. There is still a flame in your heart, waiting to be lit again. Tomorrow, when the chance to return comes knocking, you don't have to open the door. You can choose differently. You can stand tall, look straight ahead, and say with full awareness, this time I will not turn my back on myself. And that is where true strength begins, because you are not powerless. Tomorrow you can choose another way. In life, there are quiet moments that carry the weight of destiny, moments when you stand before a familiar doorway, where sweet invitations wait, where old memories that once softened your heart still linger. In that moment, no one is there to guide you. No one has the right to decide for you. It's only you and you alone facing the call within. And in that moment, the answer may seem small, but it holds your fate. No, I choose myself. Many people believe saying no is cold, that it's rejection, that it cuts off love. But under the light of Dharma, I've learned something deeper. Saying no does not mean hate. Saying no means keeping the heart pure. It is a silent vow that you will not let darkness blend with light, that you will not let the noise drown out the voice in your heart. Refusing, at times, is compassion for both sides. Because when you refuse to step back into the old spiral, you also give the other person a chance to face themselves. Aries, you must understand, holding your boundaries does not make you selfish. Boundaries are how you protect your inner flame, the primal fire you were born with. You once dimmed it so others could feel comfortable, but today you are grown enough to light it again. No one has the right to demand you snuff it out, and you don't need permission to shine. Picture this. You're standing in the middle of a circle of light. That is your sacred boundary. Every time you nod yes to something that isn't right, the circle shrinks, the light fades. But every time you say no to what harms you, the circle expands, the light bursts forth. This is the law of the soul, and the more firmly you guard your boundaries, the closer you walk toward real freedom. And here's the truth. When you choose to stand with yourself, you are not alone. The universe stands with you. Generations of ancestors, guiding spirits, unseen protectors, all of them are waiting for you to declare, I choose myself. Because when you dare to choose yourself, you are daring to choose truth. And the universe always upholds those who live true to their soul. Aries, you've been through enough to know. Your greatest loyalty isn't to any relationship out there. It belongs to your own soul. That is the most sacred bond, the longest, the truest. Don't waste more years chasing false validation. Don't turn back for a single tear and return to the spiral you already escaped. Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath, place your hand on your chest, and whisper inside, I choose myself. This is not just a phrase, it is a ritual of the soul. When you write it down, when you speak it out loud, you're sending a clear signal to the universe. I am ready to keep my promise to myself. I invite you to leave that phrase in the comments, I choose myself, not only to affirm your own strength, but to pass the flame to others still searching for their reason to choose themselves. And maybe your short message will be the spark that saves a soul lost in the dark. Sometimes the greatest things don't come from loud actions. They come from a quiet but resolute choice. And tomorrow, when that familiar door opens again, you will know it's time. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to justify. You only need to walk forward steady with the flame in your hand. And when you choose yourself, you'll notice a miracle. The fear feels lighter. The darkness no longer haunts you the same way because you've chosen the light. And in that very moment, the sacred reward begins to draw near. When a door closes, the silence that follows can feel overwhelming. But if you're brave enough to stay in that silence, you'll hear something else. The hinges of another gate beginning to open. Not a gate that leads you back into the familiar pain, but one that opens into brighter ground, a place where you can breathe without heaviness, a place where you can walk without tripping over the broken pieces of the past. I've always believed, after every door closed in self-respect, another gate opens into freedom. It's the law of life, the fairness of the universe. When you choose loyalty to your soul, you don't lose, you reclaim. You reclaim peace. You reclaim dignity. You reclaim the strength to hold your head high, and the greatest reward isn't outside of you. It's the moment you can look in the mirror, meet your own eyes, and smile. I did not betray myself. That reward shows up in the relationships you'll meet later too. No more people who come to take space, to exploit silence, to make you feel you must shrink to be loved. Instead, you'll meet those who honor your light, who rejoice when you shine, who never ask you to dim, because real love doesn't make you smaller. It makes you stand taller, softer, stronger. Remember this, you cannot build a new life on the ashes of the old. If you rebuild a house on rotten ground, it will fall again. But if you're brave enough to clear the ruins, patient enough to tend the soil, self-respecting enough to plant, you'll see new green rising. Every new beginning comes after clearing. Every real peace comes after letting go. And a new beginning doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's simply waking up one morning and feeling a little lighter. It's sipping tea in the afternoon, without your chest aching from old memories. It's the moment you realize your smile is real, not to hide, but to live. A new beginning can be as simple as trusting again that you deserve good things. You don't need a love that makes you shrink. You deserve a love that lifts you higher. You don't need a relationship that makes you doubt your worth. You deserve one that strengthens your faith in yourself. And if that love hasn't arrived yet, peace with yourself is already enough. Because when you've learned to love yourself, you already carry the strongest love there is. So close your eyes for a moment. Ask yourself, what new thing are you hoping for in this journey? Is it a new opportunity at work, healing in your family, or maybe just a quiet sky where you can be yourself without judgment? I invite you to share it in the comments. Every hope you write is like a seed planted in the garden of your soul, and maybe your sharing will spark hope for someone else who is listening. The universe never promises the new road will be smooth, but I believe when you've chosen yourself, that road will lead you home to where you truly belong. And if you are patient, if you don't turn back, you'll see the light of another life. A life that doesn't need you to hide. A life that doesn't demand payment from your soul. A life where the sacred reward isn't wealth or glory, but quiet in your heart, respect in the eyes of others, and trust reclaimed within yourself. You've walked through dark seasons to get here. Now, your dawn is opening. Step forward. Receive the reward of loyalty to yourself. And in that very moment, a new beginning is waiting to call your name. And from all these trials, a vow of the soul will be born. There are battles that happen in silence. No clash of swords, no crowd watching. Yet their outcome decides an entire life. And that battle isn't against anyone else, it's against yourself. It's the moment you look into the familiar darkness and say, enough, I will not go back, I will not repeat, I choose myself. This is the vow of the soul, a vow that doesn't need to be carved in stone, doesn't need witnesses. Yet its power echoes all the way to the heavens. Because after all, true freedom isn't about breaking away from others. It's about breaking free from the habit of betraying yourself. Aries, you've walked through mountains of trials, long nights of loneliness, winters that froze inside your heart. Every time you fell, you stood back up. Every time you were wounded, you learned how to heal. And now, at this final threshold, the test isn't to prove anything to anyone, but to prove to yourself that you've grown, that you know how to keep your deepest loyalty for your soul. The greatest victory is never defeating another. The greatest victory is keeping your promise to your own soul. When you can stand before temptation, before sweet promises, before memories that once made your heart tremble, and still say with a steady voice, I choose myself. That is the moment you don't need to shout. The light in your eyes, the peace in your breath, will speak louder than words. Feel this for a moment. When you choose yourself, you are not alone. Behind you stands the universe, the unseen support of your ancestors, the spirits who walked before you, the sacred energy surrounding you. With every step you keep this vow, the stars above will shine brighter. Every breath you take will feel lighter. You are not alone on this path. You have never been alone. Yes, you may still feel fear because freedom is not always easy, but that fear is only the residue of old chains. And when you speak this vow out loud, you are breaking those chains link by link. There will come a moment when you walk without hearing them drag behind you, when your shoulders feel lighter, your gaze brighter, your soul open like the sky after a storm. If this message reaches you, I invite you to leave a heart in the comments. And if you carry even a small story about the moment you chose yourself, share it, because your story may be the flame that lights the way for someone else lost in the dark. Aries, you don't have to go back. You don't have to repeat. You only need to keep the vow of your soul. And when you do, freedom will no longer be a distant dream. Freedom will be in your breath, in the light around you, in the road beneath your feet each day. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. And may you, Aries, always walk in light, in peace, and in true freedom.